WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Hopefully your Thanksgiving was good. Maybe you still have a little bit of leftovers, pie, turkey, whatever the case is. Today we are going to be, if all things go correctly, we're going to be talking with John Vincent. He is a senior editor at US News and World Report. They always come out with lists. That's what they're sort of known for. And they came out with a pretty interesting list of best vehicle brands for 2024. We'll be talking to him in a bit. And also, coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking to Wes Bowling from Nokian Tire. We're also going to be talking to the president of Hemmings Motor News, Jonathan Shaw. And so we're going to be talking to Scott from Empire Car Covers coming up, because a lot of people think about putting their cars away for the winter time. But right now, joining us from US World News Report is one of their editors, and we've talked with the folks from US World News before about different things, but it's always fun when we get to talk to new people. And John Vincent, welcome to the Car Doctor program.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? Well, thanks for being available on the Sunday after Thanksgiving and not, being in some sort of apple pie coma or whatever happens to people after Thanksgiving. So
I pulled out of the turkey coma yesterday. So
there you go. I think U.S. News is best known for compiling lists of different vehicles, and you guys come up with something that I don't think I've seen before, and that's leading brands in the U.S., and you guys rank them. Can you kind of take us through that, and maybe even how you coming up with that idea behind it?
So we've been doing best vehicle brands for a number of years now, and we are a very research-based company. We don't just throw darts at the wall to figure out who has the best cars in every category. We look at the broad array of reviews out there, written by automotive journalists from across the country. We look at the tenor of all those reviews, come up with a ranking for each car based on those reviews, and then for our best vehicle brands awards, we look at how a brand does across all of its models.
So when you're looking at all those things, and it must be hard these days to sort of find, and I've noticed it, there seems to be sort of, less opinion-based reviews these days. People don't seem quite as critical as they were 10 or 15 years ago. So it must be a little bit harder sometimes to go through and find the ones that actually have a little bit of criticism, I guess. Besides, it seems like everything you read sometimes, everything's great, and and let's face it, you can tell when AI writes some of these reviews you see. But it must be a little bit hard to try to filter through them all and find stuff that is really got some weight behind it, I guess.
That's very true, but fortunately I work with some very, very smart researchers. U.S. News has been doing research for a long time. We use we use research for our college rankings, our travel rankings, everything we do. So we're really good at finding those relevant reviews that really mean something to consumers.
Yeah, it really does. And in the past, we've had one of your former coworkers, Jamie Page Deaton, on the program a couple of times, and going through how what she was doing with you folks. And I think you're both still on North American Car and Truck of the Year, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more. We've kind of talked a little about the methodology. Tell us who the best car brand is, I guess.
Okay, so the best car brand, and for car brand, we're talking about just cars, not SUVs or pickups, and that is Honda. Honda has a couple of cars left in their lineup, unlike some brands that have gone completely to SUVs, and those cars are fantastic. The Honda Accord and Honda Civic both do very well in our rankings. they still sell hundreds of thousands of these cars a year.
And I guess what's nice about, whether it's an Accord or a Civic, you have some varieties in there. Do you want the hybrid? Do you want the performance version of the Civic, for instance? So you have some variety of cars in there, but to know that they're the best car brand, and I guess that shouldn't be surprising because they've been such a good car for such a long time, and originally not necessarily a big car company back in the day, and they started off sort of more of an engineering company, I guess. So the idea they bring that engineering prowess, through their lineup makes it pretty special.
Yeah, they started off with motorcycles in the U.S. and only made it to the U.S. in the early '70s with cars. And
I kind of remember the some of the original Honda dealers were sort of almost the corner gas station guy, and some of those dealers look back today and said, I should have got more than one franchise. Tell us about SUVs. SUVs are so popular these days. I mean, and like you said, in some cases it's because it's the only thing available from a particular car company. But what's the best SUV brand according to US News?
So the results on this category were interesting this year. After Hyundai winning it several years in a row, Mazda is the winner for 2024. Mazda has some new vehicles out, the CX-30, the CX-50, the CX-90, that they all have a little bit of Miata DNA in them, so they just drive better and crisper than most SUVs out there.
So a little zoom in the SUV brand?
A little zoom under the hood.
Yeah, and I drove, it was probably a month and a half or two ago now, I drove the new CX-90, and besides being the biggest Mazda I've ever driven, it was well put together and well thought out, and I could see how, that could be, you could see how that changed Mazda a little bit. And I think Mazda, like maybe Toyota, a smaller company that didn't make big changes and sort of refined everything a little bit at a time and came up with what is now kind of a classically good vehicles.
Yes. Which one did you drive? Did you drive the new inline six or the hybrid?
The new inline six, which I was sort of interested that they were so proud of that they actually put that on the fender. Yep. That it was an inline six. Yeah.
That I like that engine a lot. That it works really well in that vehicle.
It really does. And the idea that Mazda is one of those vehicles. I think when you sort of look at it, like you pointed out, there's a little bit of Miata DNA in their vehicles, which makes it a little bit different. Why do you think Hyundai sort of fell out of that top ranking?
I think some of Hyundai's products are getting a little old. And, a little bit of the shyness off them, and Mazda has a little bit of fresher product out there.
Yeah, and certainly their big SUV was everybody's choice for a couple of years when it first came out, and it was one of those vehicles that it was a great value. It was, I think they started it, or pretty well equipped at $40,000 or so. It was a great value. Everybody, from your local corner, enthusiast to Consumer Reports, everybody loved that vehicle. And then we moved up to trucks, and like SUVs, everybody seems to be selling a truck now, and there are a lot of varieties out there. There's probably no bad truck out there, but there are some that do better than others. Who won the best truck brand?
The best truck brand for 2024 is Ram, which is a surprise considering that the Ram 1500 is the oldest vehicle in the light-duty full-size segment.
Well, I think Ram keeps their vehicles looking pretty contemporary. They, you look at the, any of the Ram trucks, and I'm old, so I'm going to call them Dodge trucks still. But you look at them and you go, they don't look dated. They still tend to look pretty contemporary. They still look like it's this year, whatever year it is that you're looking at, and they've made those changes, which I think certainly helps. And the Ram trucks are some of the best riding pickups out there, and most people don't use trucks like trucks. They use them as just their first or second vehicle in their household, and you want something that's going to ride pretty well, and I think the Ram truck does that amazingly well.
It does. With that independent rear suspension, it's fantastic. And Ram has also done a great job of updating their cabins throughout the years, throughout the generation. They have one of the easiest, most powerful infotainment centers in the marketplace. It's called Uconnect. Works every time, which you can't really say for other systems.
And they seem to have figured out that not everybody wants a touchscreen. And they added some buttons to it, and also if you're somebody who does use a truck like a truck, whether it's towing a boat or a camping trailer or a work trailer or a horse trailer, they still have that diesel that's capable of towing. I don't know, it's the most powerful truck in the universe or something, right?
All the heavy duty trucks can haul a ridiculous amount of weight to the point where you need a special license to operate them.
And the idea that you can do that and you can do it in a truck that's comfortable, I think is really kind of makes it special. Luxury brands, as I was looking through this article a couple of years ago, luxury brands I will say kind of caught me by surprise with your pick.
I would say that it caught me by surprise as well. Porsche has won that award every year since we've had it, until this year when Rivian, a startup electric car company, won it. Rivian has two models, a very interesting lifestyle pickup and an SUV.
And the pickup is kind of unique because it sort of reminds you of a Honda pickup a little bit. It's sort of a light duty-ish pickup, but it has storage space in all kinds of places where you wouldn't expect to see it. And like you pointed out, they have just the two models, and the two models are essentially similar. One's an SUV and one's a pickup. But like all electric cars, they're ridiculously fun to drive.
Oh, they have the performance of a Porsche 911. It's amazing how quick they are.
And pretty good range in a Rivian too, right? 250, 280 miles, something like that.
Up to 400 with the right battery pack.
Oh, and like you said, with the bigger battery, 0 to 60 in 3.5 or 4 seconds, right?
I think we may be a little under that.
Oof.
They're very quick.
And
they're still SUVs and pickups, so you're still throwing a lot of weight around, but they're quick.
And you look at all these vehicles and sort of go through them all. The idea that something like a Rivian did this well and kind of stole it away from Mercedes, Porsche, any of the Lexus, any of the high end luxury brands, and did it as a company that's not technically a car company; it's a tech company.
I would agree with you. It's they've done a really good job, and it's one of those companies that I hope survives in the long run.
You can only hope, based on what they're doing, and they're, looks like they're coming out with a third model pretty soon, and we'll wait and see how electric vehicles go. Whether electric vehicles, if you read some of the headlines today, maybe the glamour of electric vehicles has worn off a little bit. It looks like vehicle manufacturers are backing off a little bit. Whether it's everything from Ford to Toyota, which wasn't really in the market as an electric vehicle producer. But so what else did you glean out of this report that continues to make it pretty interesting? How certain vehicles performed, and maybe you had your top picks of vehicle manufacturers. What were there vehicles in that range, so sort of best luxury car? Were there sort of second and third place winners in there that are worth mentioning?
I don't have that information about who won the second and third, but there are really no bad cars in the marketplace anymore. And we did have one more award that we should talk about.
Oh, okay,
and
sure.
That's
I must have...
Best Certified Pre-Owned Brand Award.
Certified
pre-owned vehicles are a way of getting the benefits of a new car with a warranty, but a price closer to a used car. And Lexus's Certified Pre-Owned program continues to win that award each year because it has fantastic coverage. And it's on a Lexus, so you probably don't need the coverage anyway because Lexuses are going to run forever. But, you have the security of that CPO backing when you buy a Lexus certified pre-owned car.
Well, and that's, the whole certified pre-owned moniker is sometimes a little bit confusing for people because sometimes there's dealer certified, sometimes there's manufacturer certified, and sometimes you wonder, did they really do anything to it, or do they just know that it's going to be a good car and we'll put a extended, a longer warranty on it. So kind of going through that, but like you pointed out, you're starting off with a Lexus, which you have great quality there to start off with, and then adding in the extras. And if you've been to some of these dealerships where the vehicle comes in, they do look like brand new cars when they come in. And a lot of times, if the cars, might have had a new set of tires put on it, and in fact, I had a reader who just wrote to me and said, they just bought a certified pre-owned Lexus, and it came with, they looked under the hood, brand new battery, brand new tires, to try to make it so it's going to be as close to new as possible with the least amount of problems.
A lot of CPO cars, certified pre-owned cars, are lease returns, and just due to the nature of leasing, people have to take care of those cars. People have to maintain those cars. People have to keep the mileage down on those cars. So they make great used cars.
And if people want to read more about the US News reports and all of your lists and everything you guys compile, which you do such a great job of, how do people do that?
Just go to usnews.com and click on the Cars tab. You'll find all our content. We talk about more than just each car. We talk about how to buy cars, how to pay the right price. We help you make that one of life's biggest decisions.
And I like the idea that you don't sort of focus on one thing. It could be the best car for a teen. It could be the best car that you're sending your kid to college with. You guys have put together some pretty interesting lists over the years, and it's fun stuff to read, and it's educational, and it works.
Thank you. We appreciate hearing that.
All right. John, thanks for taking a little time out of your Sunday morning and joining us on the Car Doctor program.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. That was John Vincent. He is editor of the U.S. News and World Report Cars section, and you can read his stuff at US News and Report.com. I'm sorry I sort of stumbled over that, but we'll make sure we have the right thing for you. And it is, if you go to the listing for it, you can find it, and you can find all the great stuff. Why don't we take another break? I'm going to have a second sip of coffee, which apparently I need. And when we come back, maybe we'll talk to you about your car problems, your Thanksgiving dinner, whatever you want to talk about. Our phone number is 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900. Lines are open if you want to give us a call. My name's John Paul. This is a Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour 7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
The Company Theater brings the most beloved fairy tale Cinderella to the stage this holiday season. The Tony Award-winning musical has delighted audiences for generations. Join Ella's magical journey as she discovers she has the power to create her own destiny. In the name of every girl who ever wanted to change the world she lived in, it's possible. Cinderella runs from Friday, November 24th until Sunday, December 17th. Visit companytheater.com for tickets or call 781-871-2787.
This This is my time.
Hey guys, it's Lexi James.
And we're Crier Creek.
Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio Sundays on 95.9 WATD and 95.9 WATD.com.
Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook.
And visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. And it is, the website is usnews.com, by the way. And if you click on usnews.com, like John Vincent said, go to the cars section, and then you can find all kinds of stuff. And it's, like they said, rankings driven by research, and they talk about it. It can be the 10 best hybrid SUVs. It can be 10 best SUV vehicles in general. They have all kinds of different kind of stories and research and all of this stuff. So it's there's stories about how to negotiate the price of a car lease payment calculators on here. There's all kinds of good stuff. So check it out at usnews.com, and then just click on the cars section. And if you don't want the car section, there's other stuff you can look at US News. And whether it's travel, money, health, education, real estate, there's all kinds of stuff in here. So best doctors, best hospitals, all kinds of good stuff. So you can check it all out. Our phone number is 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900. If you want to join us on this Sunday after Thanksgiving, I'd love to talk to you. And some of the emails that came in this week, apparently someone's putting their, I think they're from Marshfield, actually. They said they're putting their boat trailer away for the winter. They only use it a couple times a year, and they notice the lights aren't working. They say some work, some don't work at all, ever. What's wrong? And the first place to start is to make sure the issue isn't with the vehicle, the tow vehicle itself. So, whether you have a flat 4 connection or you have that round 7-pin connection, if you have trailer brakes, you want to make sure that you have a good connection. I know I put a trailer hitch and trailer lighting setup on my little SUV, and rather than cut into wiring harnesses and all of that, there was a little box I bought for like $20, and it plugged into the harness, and part of it plugged back into the rest of the harness, and it was a wire that worked out to run the trailer lights. So, but like all trailer lights, start at that connection. Usually the open pin, if it's a flat 4 style connection, is the ground, and you want to make sure you have a good ground. Old-timey trailers a lot of times would use the trailer hitch as a ground. They don't do that anymore. Most trailers now are wired in such a way that open pin, that pin that's not covered by any insulation, is the ground. And then you have a left and right turn signal plug, and the third one is for the brake lights that light up all the brake lights. So check it with a test light, and use an actual 12-volt test light. Don't use a voltmeter. And why I say that is especially a digital voltmeter. A digital voltmeter may show voltage, but it might not have enough impedance, so it doesn't put enough stress on the system. So you can look at something with a voltmeter, and I remember learning this when I was at GM school years and years ago, that you look at something with a voltmeter and you test it and you go, oh yeah, there's 12 volts there. And then you put a test light on it, but that 12 volts isn't enough 12 volts to light a light bulb. So use a simple 12-volt test light that will work. Kind of check the plug, make sure everything's working the way it should. If everything's working there the way it should, then move to the trailer wiring itself. In that case, don't start piercing wires. A lot of people do that. Sometimes they'll take their test light and jam it through the insulation. Even if you only use this trailer a couple times a year, if it dips in the water, it's going to cause more corrosion, so don't do that. But in this case, rather than start at the beginning, I would start at the end. And in most cases, I'll always say when you're troubleshooting something electric, start at the beginning. Start at the fuse box and work your way backwards. But in this case, I would start with probably the trailer lights themselves. most lighting problems with trailers are corrosion in the bulbs themselves, in the sockets. Depending on what you have, if you have LED lights or conventional bulbs, usually you'll find that there's corrosion in there. My little boat trailer that I have has probably the cheapest trailer lights I've ever seen, and they are they're open at the bottom. And I guess maybe that makes some sense when you dunk the trailer into the water and the trailer lights just fill up with water. But you would think that if you had the trailer lights hooked up and you put it in the water and stepped on the brake, it would burn out the bulbs immediately, which makes no sense to me. So I always unplug the trailer lights before I put it in the water, just in case. And but you can get corrosion in there. So, check the bulbs, see if they look rusted or corroded, and then kind of work your way up from there looking for problems. But chances are the problem is either in if you have running lights or just the stop and turn signal lights in the back. And if you are going to decide if the sockets are all rusty, replace them with a waterproof LED style. You'll get a lot more life out of them that way, and something you should do. Somebody else writes to me and they say they have a 2018 Camry with almost 90,000 miles on it. They recently had an oil change done, and they said the pads on the front and the rear brakes were down to 3 millimeters. Should I have them replaced right away? Could I do the front and then the rear later? Try to save a little bit of money. This is the first time either set would be replaced. So they did really well, almost 90,000 miles on an original set of brakes on a 5-year-old Toyota Camry. So pretty good. New brakes, 10 to 12 millimeters. So at 3, they're pretty low. It's funny, I guess, because I'm old. We never measured brakes in millimeters like that. And just kind of look at them and go, you got another few thousand miles left or whatever the case is. But now they have these little tools. They're sort of kind of a little L-shaped tool, and you kind of stick it in between the brake pad and the rotor, and it's kind of a go, no-go gauge. So it's like, this is 2 millimeters, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. And based on that, it gives you an idea, if it's like, it's 6 millimeters, brakes are half one, whatever the case is. So depending on the driver, half one could be, in this case, you could get another 40,000 miles out of them. Somebody who goes through a set of brakes every 25 or 30,000 miles, half one, you're only going to get another 10 or 15,000. Always better to replace brakes earlier than later. Less damage to not just the brake rotors, which in these days pretty much get replaced every brake job, but you can also, when you replace brake rotors, you can also look at, is there anything else I need to think about while I'm doing that, and why do I need to replace the brakes a little bit earlier? Well, if the brake calipers the pistons extend out a little bit further, you can run into just more rust and more corrosion. Fortunately, we've done away with the idea of CPR, which is what people used to call it, calipers, pads, and rotors. People are kind of being a little bit more reasonable as far as replacing calipers these days. But rotors, resurfacing them, you don't get a lot of extra life out of them by resurfacing them. Although I saw something the other day on a YouTube video. So back to, do you replace them front or rear? How are you going to do it? I would, if they're all at 3 millimeters, do them all now. It's going to save you time out of the shop. Is it going to save you money? Is it cheaper to do all 4 wheels than just front and rear? You might find it is. I mean, some shops might have a total package where they charge you a little bit less, but chances are probably not. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you're getting good quality parts. They don't have to be the original factory part, but they need to be a good quality part. Depending on how brakes are made, some brake pads are literally the friction material is glued onto the brake pad. Sometimes they're made on with like a mechanical fastener behind them. So you want to make sure you have a brake pad that's made well. Same thing with brake rotors. Better quality rotors just going to last longer, be less likely to warp and distort due to heat. So do them all at the same time. Change the brake fluid while you're doing it. Since you're going to be there, you might as well do that at the same time as well. That should be something that's done every 3 or 4 years, 5 years maybe. I mean, we never used to change brake fluid because we would, as we were doing brakes, you'd just kind of take care of it. There was an old time radio mechanic, Brad Sears. If you've been listening to the radio for a lifetime, you probably remember Brad Sears was on the radio. And one of the things he used to recommend, and I kind of liked it, was he would recommend, as far as brake fluid goes, go get the equivalent of an industrial turkey baster and suck out some brake fluid out of the master cylinder. Not enough so you get it down to empty, but just enough so you're putting, 2 or 3 ounces of fresh brake fluid in, at different times. So maybe when you do an oil change, especially if you're doing it yourself, go out there with your little turkey baster type thing and suck out a few ounces of brake fluid, put in some new brake fluid, and then as you step on the brakes, brake fluid actually squirts back up into the master cylinder. So you're replacing some of that old fluid with new fluid every time you do that. And, is it as good as flushing out the entire brake system? No. But is it a good preventative thing to do at oil changes? Sure. And if you're doing your own oil changes, if you're someone who likes to do that because either you feel a sense of accomplishment or you don't trust people to do it for you, because I have seen some terrible oil change examples, including, I remember it was back in 1999, we bought my wife a Volkswagen, and we bought it at the local Volkswagen dealer, and I was standing there while I did the first oil change, I did the second oil change, that's what it was, and because I think the first one they did for free or something, and so I did the second oil change, and the oil filter was on so tight I could barely get it off. I think I had to punch a hole through it to get it out. And the oil drain plug actually came out stripped. So fortunately, it didn't screw up the threads in the pan, and it's a pretty easy pan to replace, but it didn't cause any problems. So I just took a little pick and kind of just ran it around the threads inside the pan, went to the dealer, got a new oil drain plug, got a new oil drain plug gasket. It threaded in the way it was supposed to, so it worked the way it should. While I was standing there, I saw somebody doing an oil change. I saw them take out the drain plug with the same impact wrench that they use to take lug nuts off with. Now, granted, the plug's coming out, not going back in, hopefully that way. But the idea that you would use an impact gun to take out an oil drain plug just is an idea you're going to have a problem. So, maybe that's why you do your own oil changes, because you don't trust somebody. Our little family cars we have here, my Hyundai, I tend to do my own oil changes because it's easy. The oil filter sits straight up and down, easy to get to. There's a little access cover you pop off to get to it. The oil drain plug is the same way. I have a set of Harbor Freight plastic ramps that I bought this year, so I could drive up in it and kind of crawl under there. Pretty easy to do. I use the Hyundai factory oil filter because I like the Hyundai factory oil filters. They don't seem to cause any problems, and you can buy them online in the Hyundai packaging for $5 or $6 a filter, so they're cheaper than buying some of the filters from the big box stores. So, and I tend to use a good quality oil in the car because this engine in my car has had its share of problems. If you own a Hyundai from, 2013 to 18, some of these engines have had problems where they've had everything from connecting rod failure due to bearing issues to oil consumption issues. Mine's 5 years old now. Haven't seemed to have that problem yet. But recently, I worked with a listener, reader, former coworker who ended up with a new engine in his vehicle because it was going through so much oil issues. And I worked with him and Hyundai to get that resolved. Hyundai is fairly responsive once you get to the right person. Like a lot of companies, their customer service is handled by a third-party vendor. So sometimes they can only say what they can say. But once you get to the person who can actually make the decisions, some things go a little bit better. one more question, and again, our phone number 781-837-4900, and I expected phones to be quiet today, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and not quite blustery out, but people probably out trying to get some stuff done. They're returning home, wherever they came from. But someone said, I don't know if you've covered this in the past, but it's my understanding the 3.5-liter V6 engine that is in early Ford Edge vehicles or Ford Explorers, and this one is a 2011, have had a water pump issue. When the pump goes bad, it ends up destroying the engine. Since the pump is internal, the cost of replacing it is very costly and not for the home mechanic. My question is, the water pump issue, is that the only issue on the V6 engines? And if so, how can I find out if my vehicle is one of them? You can't really. That's the issue. It's a 12-hour job and to do the water pump on this, because the water pump is driven by the timing chain. I'm not sure who thought that was a brilliant idea at Ford, but it sounds like it might have been a good idea, but it really wasn't. What can happen is the water pump can leak, and that was really common on some models, and basically the chain tensioners and guides also break. So the timing chain breaks, the water pump goes bad, all kinds of things go bad, and then you end up with problems. On newer models, they had the same design, but they switched to something a little bit more robust design in the water pump. At this point, all you can do is change the coolant when it's needed, do the oil change on a regular basis, and check the pump periodically for noise and leaks. Is about all you can really do to know that it's going to work the way it's supposed to. So that's about it. Let's see, one more, only because I like this one. It says, when people talk about hybrid cars, they mention only the positive things. Are these cars all as good as they say they are? Could you enlighten us on what are some of the negatives of owning a hybrid vehicle? Hybrid vehicles, well, they cost more than their non-hybrid counterparts, so you're going to pay a little bit more. So even with the better fuel economy, it's going to take longer to pay off your initial investment. AAA has a good cost per mile guide where you can look and see, like, if you compared, I just remember looking at a gasoline, I think it was a gasoline Kia versus a hybrid Kia versus a battery electric Kia. Over the first 5 years, they're all about the same. All cost per mile was about the same because you pay a little bit more. And you pay more for the car, so the cost per mile, depreciation, all that stuff all ends up being about the same. So you're going to pay more. You're going to get better fuel economy. The other part of it is getting hybrids repaired, although we're seeing more and more repair shops that are not shying away from hybrids and plug-in hybrids and even battery electric cars. Not every repair shop's up to full speed if there's some kind of problem with them. So that could be, where you bring the car for service. You may be going back to the dealer all the time, depending on what's wrong. If it's just things like brakes and regular servicing, brakes, struts, suspension, you can go and get that done. Also, it's a little tricky on the resale value. I mean, typically a hybrid battery is going to last at least 10 years. Although one of our listeners has a hybrid Escape, the battery is bad on it. They have replaced the battery. They found somebody who would put a remanufactured battery in for, I think, $4,000 rather than the $15,000 or $20,000 the dealer wanted. But the car still has some problems, and it's got some weird code issues coming up. So they're still in a little bit of a tizzy about what to do with the vehicle. And that can be one of the things, as that vehicle gets older, you go to trade it in, and the trade-in could suffer because someone might say, well, I can't give you much for this car because the battery is nearing the end of its useful life. Although when that battery hybrid car ends up on the lot, it might be a different story, like, oh, the battery in this is only 10 years old. You got plenty of life left in it. So it's kind of that we buy junk, we sell antiques kind of thought. But, cars are a personal choice. You have to find the right car that fits your needs, your wants, your budget. So if you can find a vehicle that works for you, I think it was one of the Motor Press guys I was talking to, ended up buying a hybrid. And yeah, he paid a little bit more for it, but he's saving about 30% on what he was paying for gasoline over what he was in his previous SUV. So that hybrid is giving him 36 miles per gallon, where his old vehicle was in the low 20s. So he's making it up in fuel economy. And depending on where you drive and how you drive, once COVID happened, I used to fill my car every third day. So I would never run it down to empty, but I would run it down to a quarter of a tank. And I would fill up my car every 3 days because I was driving 100 miles round trip. So usually by the third day, I was down to a quarter of a tank of gas, and I would fill up either kind of on my way home from work or on my way to work before I got there on the third day. And, gas was costing me a lot. Then COVID happened, and I was putting gas in my car like once a month maybe. And now that I'm sort of semi-retired and I only work for AAA 15 hours a week and I never, ever go into the office, I still only I don't really go that far. So with the exception of, driving here to Florida for the winter, where I put gas in my car sometimes twice or 3 times a day, because we would drive about 600 or 700 miles, maybe 600 miles, per day. So my car's on a good day has a range of about 340 miles. I would, fill up before we took off. When we got to, about quarter of a tank, fill up again, and then by the time we ended up at a hotel, would fill up that night. So we're starting the day with a full tank of gas. So, but other than that, I think once I have gotten to Florida, I don't think I filled up my tank. And because of that, I tend to add a little bit of fuel stabilizer to my car because the fuel's going to sit in there for a month. Is it necessary? I was talking to one of my neighbors. He's a marine mechanic from Maine. He's not a big believer in fuel stabilizer. He's a bigger believer in use if it's a boat, for instance, use ethanol-free fuel. But if not, he's not a big believer in it. And I like this guy a lot. We agree on a lot of things, but I kind of disagree on that because whenever I've not used fuel stabilizer in things like snowblowers, lawnmowers, chainsaws, not as much on 2-cycle stuff, but on regular 4-cycle gasoline stuff, when I've not used it, I've had problems. When I have used it, I've never had a problem. Depending on what kind of thing it is, I will tend to just add the fuel stabilizer, let it run for a little, let it swish around inside there, and it's all good. I have an old Honda lawnmower that basically came out of a junk pile, and I put fuel stabilizer in that. It has a gasoline shutoff on the carburetor, so you can turn it off and let the carburetor run dry. And I have mixed feelings about that because one of the reasons it was in a junk pile is it didn't run. And I took the carburetor off of it, and the inside of the carburetor was all rusty. Now, was it rusty because the root beer colored fuel that was in there was a problem? Or was it rusty because someone actually shut the fuel off and moisture got inside the carburetor bowl and caused rust? I'm not quite sure. Why don't we take another break? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD, but you probably already knew that because you're the one who turned the radio on, or you told your smart speaker to listen to WATD. Our phone number 781-837-4900. We'll be right back.
We're not happy unless you're happy. Hi, I'm Sheldon Stewart of Stewart Painting, and that's been our promise for over 35 years. If we paint your home, it's going to be a great experience. We do every job right, on time, and we stand behind our work. We have thousands of lifetime customers. That's because we are committed to delivering a top-notch job every time. There are not many sure things in life, but hiring Stewart Painting to paint your home is a sure thing. That's because we live by the Stewart Painting promise. We're not happy unless you're happy. To schedule your free estimate, call either of our Hingham or Hyannis offices, or to receive a virtual quote, visit us online at stewartpaint.com. Send us a video of your project and receive your estimate within 24 hours. That's stewartpaint.com. And remember, Stewart Painting. Expect the best.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour 7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Tis the season for trivia on 95.9 WATD. Test your knowledge of Noel and win fabulous prizes to stuff your stockings this Christmas. Listen for the cue from Eddie the Elf, beginning this Friday through December 15th, and be the 12th caller to answer Tis the Season trivia. Correct answers win gift cards from one of our contest's wonderful sponsors. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas at the station that packs the presents, 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Our phone number is 781-837-4900. Let's talk to Tom. Tom, good morning. Tom?
Are you there?
I am.
Good. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good, thank you. So you are going to Florida?
I am in Florida.
You are already?
Yeah, already.
Good man. How was the trip down?
It was uneventful, although my wife says that her ideal way to do this would be that I leave on a Monday, she gets on a plane on a Wednesday, and I pick her up at the airport on the way by.
I like that.
Yeah. She has never been a road trip person. And the idea of spending, 8, 9, 10 hours in a car at a time, and we break it up. We do it over 3 days, but still, it's a lot of time behind the wheel, and maybe in like a fancy luxury car it would be a little bit better, but and we did it this time. We went kind of across the top of New Jersey down through Pennsylvania, so we didn't take the standard Route 95 route, which was less hectic, and even though it adds an hour or so to the drive, it feels better at the end of the day. Although it's funny, on the second night, so we had been in the car for
okay,
I don't know how many, 1,000 miles, and we were looking for a hotel, and I must have asked my wife 3 times when I'm looking on my phone trying to find a hotel, what town are we in? Because by then my mind just didn't want to work anymore. I was fine for driving, but I wasn't so fine for trying to think. So, which probably meant I wasn't fine for driving either.
That's why you need to stay on 95 so you can see Cuckoo Charlie's and Looney Louie's and south of the border. You know where you are.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I've never been to south of the border. Although I keep saying every time I either come to Florida or leave Florida, I would like to go to the Don Garlett's drag race museum, because I drive right by it, and Don Garlett's is like 90-something years old now. How much longer is he going to be around? And but he still has arms that look like Popeye.
Oh, that's something.
Yeah, he's still a pretty amazing guy. And I got to meet him a bunch of years ago. He was at an event where I was, and he was he was like guest speaker or something. And he came over and he was interested in what was going on, and really nice guy. And I remember talking to him. He said, someday we're gonna break 300 miles an hour out on the drag strip. And now they do it every single day. 300 miles an hour on, and they don't even go a quarter of a mile anymore. They only go 1,000 feet. They shortened up the quarter mile drags to 1,000 feet, and the speeds and the vehicles are ridiculously impressive. And we'll have to have Brian Loans on. Brian Loans is a local guy from my old town in Abington, where now he's the NHRA announcer at for Fox Sports, and he was just on some big event where it looked like the Oscars, and he was the MC, and there had to be, I don't know, it looked like there was 5,000 people in the audience. So we'll see if we can get him on. The program. Yeah, you'll get him on the program and talk to him.
I got a question about a lawnmower.
Absolutely.
How often should we change oil on a lawnmower, and do you recommend stay built, or do you recommend just let the gas run out and then put fresh gas in? Or I'm worried about the gaskets drying out.
Yeah, I'm old fashioned. I put stable in. I put fresh gas and stable in, and I try to use. I don't want to use the same gas that I've been using all summer out of the gas can. And even though I will, I like most people, I had a gas can, and I would add, I'd fill it up a couple times over the summer, but I would add stable to that just in case, because
Right.
the gas can picks up moisture and so forth. But like I said, I would always, whenever I didn't use stable, I always ran into a problem. So I always tend to use stable. I always tend to use stable or something like that. And I also tended to use the marine stable, the blue one. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
absolutely convinced there's probably nothing different in it other than it's blue. They probably add food coloring, but it's supposed to be better for ethanol fuel. But I'll tend to use that one. And the other thing is, as far as oil changes, it's funny when. For people who listen to this program knew that for 40 odd years I lived in Abington, and I had the same little tiny house in Abington, and we moved to our little beach cottage. But our little tiny house in Abington, I was getting it ready. I think it was just in the fall, and I was, raking up leaves and mowing the lawn one last time. And I had my lawnmower that I had for 20 odd years, started it up, ran, and there was this one pile of leaves I kind of wanted to mulch up, to rake into a tarp to drag it into the woods. And I started up the lawnmower. I ran partway across the leaves, and the lawnmower literally broke the rod and threw it through the side of the block. So I'm like, oh, geez. So I went down the street to Lowe's in Abington, and they only had, it was the fall. It was probably Thanksgiving time, and they had like one lawnmower left on the shelf, and it was Lowe's has the Craftsman brand, so I brought it home, and I'm reading the directions, and it says it's not necessary to change the oil in this. And I'm like, what? What do you mean it's not necessary to change the oil in it? And according to their owner's manual, it said just add oil as necessary. And I'm like, how can that be good for an engine, especially a little engine that works hard like that? So I would always.
And you only use it like 6 times a season.
Well,
when you think about it.
Yeah, you don't use it a lot, but no. I don't like leaving dirty oil in something that sits. So I would always tend to, the last mow of the season, I would tend to change the oil and then put fresh oil in it. And it takes 3/4 of a quart of oil, so it's not expensive.
Right.
And I would, usually end up using synthetic oil, and people are like, "Why do you use synthetic oil?" I'm like, usually it's left over from changing oil in the car or something. So, so I would use synthetic oil, and I'm like, besides, it's not expensive, and it's you go to Walmart, buy their synthetic oil, which actually, 2000, which actually gets tested out as doing better than some of the premium oils. So,
and their filters also.
Yeah. So
they did a better test than the Fram.
Yeah. So go and although it's funny, I think Fram is sometimes referred to as the orange can of death, which I don't know that I believe that, because I use Fram, I used them for a long time. But if you watch some of the popular YouTube guys, the Rust Rescue guy or whatever, Vice Grip Garage guys, always taking off. Different oil filters and putting Wix filters on, which leads me to believe Wix must somehow sponsor his program. But and that's fine. Wix is a good filter. But yeah, do that. So even like we have our old Volkswagen that I paid $1,000 for 4 years ago down the Cape, that we leave there for the winter time, and that car was only supposed to last a year, maybe 2 at the most, because we were going to decide, do we really need an extra car? My wife likes having the extra car, so we still keep it. But even that car, before I put a car cover over it and checked everything under the hood, I changed the oil. And that one I bring someplace to change the oil, because I can't get under it. It's so low to the ground. I can't get my ramps under it, and I end up having to put planks down to get the front tires a little higher off the ground. Yes. to get it up over the ramps, because it has sort of sagged with age. So So I ended up bringing it somewhere. And I said to the guy at the repair shop, and it's this little repair shop in Dennis where I live called, I think it's Dave and Don's or Don and Dave's or something. And I went there and I said, do you have my records from last year? Because he says to me, oh, yeah, we noticed you got a CV boot that's starting to leak a little bit. And I said, yeah, it was leaking last year. I said, how many miles on this since last year? And he looks at it and he says, well, you were here just almost exactly a year ago. And I said, how many miles? And he takes out his little calculator and he figures it out. And he goes, you've been 980 miles with this car. And I said, in a year? And he goes, yep, 980 miles in a year. And he looks at me and goes, no point in fixing that CV boot then. And I said, no, not at all. I said, but he said, most people wouldn't change the oil. And I said, yeah, I know, but it gets driven such short distances and the oil's got to be contaminated. And I don't want to leave contaminated oil in the car and let it set for, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Okay, good point.
So same thing with the lawnmower. If you put fresh oil in it before you put it away for the wintertime, your lawnmower's going to like you for it.
Sounds good.
Unless you bought this Craftsman one, which doesn't have a drain plug, so you can't change the oil, which I thought was the dumbest thing ever. And you can tip it upside down and dump the oil out of it.
My brother-in-law has to tip his upside down. Mine has a drain plug.
Yeah.
And
so
easy enough.
The new owners of my house, maybe they're still using a lawnmower because I left them the lawnmower, the snow blower, the weed whacker, the leaf blower, and hopefully all that stuff is still working for them. So
no, usually I put the stay built in, run the gas down, and then I put the stay built in, and I run a little bit just to get the stay built in the gas line too, and then the carburetor and a bowl and everything else also.
Yep. No, that's why I don't like the little Honda mower that I have, which, like I said, came out of a junk pile. That has a fuel shutoff on it, and when you shut it off, I always worry the inside of the bowl is going to get rusty and dirty. So hey, that music means we need to go. And thanks
Have
for calling in.
Rest of the
All
weekend.
right, you as well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That music means we need to go. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.